It's not about Metropolis or NMO, other path labs or SRL or whatever it may be. I'm not giving names, but there are errors. And it's not rare.
For example, let's say we get 1,000 feedbacks a year. I can tell you when we actually go through all those 1,000, you will actually find the errors are very few. Are we finding women who are actively checking themselves to check for lumps at home? No.
Yeah.
Usually a woman will only pick it up when the symptoms start to show quite significant. Women used to have miscarriages.
Yeah.
We didn't know why.
Yeah.
It just happened. Doctor said, we don't know, deal with it, try again. Now, if there is a specific mutation you're looking for, you can find out what genetic mutation is potentially causing the miscarriage. Sought help from people and advice and wisdom from people who had had more experience than I did. They didn't know me from Adam. They were not my family friends. I found ways to access them. I built a relationship. And then when I needed help, I went to them and I said, I need help. My father always told me, he said, listen, please don't marry a rich man. And he very clearly, he said, please don't marry a rich man. It's actually opposite of what most people tell their daughters.
Yeah.
And he said, if you want to marry anybody, marry a self-made man. Please don't marry somebody who's inherited a lot of wealth.
Ameera, I'm so happy to be doing this with you. And I've interviewed you so many times, even when I was in NDTV. After that, I did my own independent show. You were on that. And every few years when I interview you, you've evolved as an entrepreneur. And now you're a mother of 3.
Don't remind me.
I don't know how you do it. You know that cliche of I don't know how you do it? You're a mother of 3, including twins who are 1. Okay, you run Metropolis, which is an unbelievable organization. You've made acquisitions recently. You take care of everyone around you. That much I know. How do you do all of this, Ameera?
With lots and lots of help. I'm no superwoman. I don't do anything by myself, honestly. Metropolis is in good hands of a professional team that's running it every day. Yes, I continue to lead it. I continue to champion it, spearhead it, be the mentor for it. But I'm not running the business day to day anymore.
Of course.
And the team does an excellent job at it, right? So that's one. A home doesn't work without a staff and team at home, again. And at least what I've figured out is a lot about just taking care of people, right? You take care of your team and they're very happy to take care of you. And I think it's just that symbiotic relationship that works. So I would say, honestly, I spend a lot of my time taking care of my team.
Yeah.
And that for me is what works for me.
You make it sound so easy and practical. I know on some level it is a practical thing that you're doing, but there must be days where you're really stretched.
Yeah, there are days
Because you have aging parents as well.
Yeah, of course, there are days you're stretched. Husband's traveling, 3 kids are sick. You've got a bunch of stuff to deal with. You don't want to let the ball down on anything. You want to sort of keep everything in the air. There are days that happens. But I think just keeping it in perspective
Yeah.
that that's not your day to day. And actually, day to day is much easier. And day to day, there's a lot of help. And there are times you're stretched, and that's okay. I mean, it passes.
Do you
So,
feel like because you had these babies, of course, you had your son earlier, but because you had your babies a little bit later in life, do you feel like that gives you a sense of maturity and perspective?
of course. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I think there's lots of advantages to having your kids young from a perspective that, you've got more energy.
Yeah.
You're able to maybe do 20 things, which it's nothing you can't do, but it's
Yeah.
just a little easier. But there are benefits of having your children later as well. You have less FOMO. You have far more perspective. I'm not like when my friends are out at night, I'm not thinking, oh my God, wish I was there. Once in a while I am,
Yeah.
but it's not a regular feature. So I think there's a lot of benefit. You're more patient. I feel you're a little bit more relaxed. You're not as like hyper about things. So I think there are a lot of benefits from an emotional perspective. And I think what Hemant, my husband, and I do honestly from a physical perspective is we both just try to do a lots of physical stuff with them. Whether it's holiday or otherwise, we're playing games with them, we're running around, we're playing badminton, we're playing football. And honestly, you create the energy, I think,
Yeah.
for when your children are young, right? At whatever age or stage you are. I mean, I know 20-year-olds who don't get up their bum and go and play with their children. So I think a lot of it is just your mental space than
Absolutely.
anything else.
When you came back from the US, your dad had one lab. You saw the potential to scale it up.
If I go back to the roots of entrepreneurship, they were actually laid much earlier.
Yeah.
It was laid in me going and working in the lab when I was like 10 and 11 years old. I used to go every summer and to work in my dad's lab. I used to work from 8 in the morning till 8 in the night. I used to go with him and I used to come back with him.
So, what did you do at age 10 and 11
Whatever
there?
I could, which was labeling samples, picking up calls when people came for blood collections, putting those little putties, just anything and everything. And my father has always been the person who's completely not protective. He will just throw you in the water and say you sink or swim. And that's what he did there as well. So every afternoon I was calling him sir. Every afternoon I was in the pantry where there were three of us who could sit. I was eating lunch with all the staff and learning about their lives, which was such amazing exposure because obviously I had a far more privileged life than they did. But it just gave you a sense of grounding, a sense of perspective, a sense of working hard, a sense of being one of many and not being special,
Mm.
the boss's child sort of thing. And I think all those things really help. The fact that they encouraged me to go trekking and never worried about, oh my God, my daughter's away with boys for 5 days. Oh, my daughter's away. What will happen to her? Let me keep calling her. There was none of that. They were just like, go. And I went and I fell and I cried and I got up and I walked. And the sense again of independence, the sense of being able to do things on your own, fail, figure it out. I mean, these were all amazing privileges that they gave me. And I feel a lot of that actually is what is the source of it.
That's incredible, actually.
Yeah, it really is.
Because they are Gujarati parents at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And very few of their peers would have raised their children in this way.
absolutely. And I always heard growing up my father telling me,
Mm.
in one context, I remember him telling me, Ameera, weird is good. Right. And I was like, what do you mean? Because like weird is always weird, right? And he was like, no, weird is good. Be different. Don't try to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
And my mother or my parents didn't give a damn about what anybody else in society said about their girls. Their girls were theirs, and we were as we were. Not perfect. We were as we were, but they didn't really tell us ever, "Oh, what will this one say, what will that one say, don't do this will happen," none of that, right? So there was really a wonderful upbringing in terms of a lot of sense of being authentic and a sense of independence.
And purpose.
And
I think one of the reasons would be
by
your
watching
mother
them,
had so much purpose.
by
Of course,
watching
your father, we know,
yeah,
had a lab and had his purpose.
yeah,
But I think also when a woman, like your mother, has so much purpose in her life,
that's right.
her approach to parenting might be different.
It is. And she used to keep saying that I keep meeting women from across the spectrum and I keep seeing how they are. And she was aware of what was happening in modern India.
Mm.
She knew what was happening. It's just that the girls were not telling their mothers and they were going and having affairs, they were going and getting pregnant, they were going and doing whatever they needed to
Yeah.
do at that stage of life. And she was aware of it because they were telling their doctor, but not their mother. And she always told me, she said, look, whatever you do, I'm here first, number one, right? And whatever it is you do, you come back and you tell me, and I'll be right. I'll be right besides you. So she was very progressive in her
Yeah.
thinking, and like you said, I mean, honestly, they never had to preach purpose. They did only two things. One, we never talked about money at home. There was no conversation around, oh, we're going to go and live in this hotel. We're going to go and like travel to this place or business class or like I'm going to buy this fancy. There was none of that, right? Because one, we didn't have money.
Mm.
But second of all, the conversation was always around, this patient really needs my help. I really need to go and take care of this person at 3 in the morning, even though I've not slept at all because I need to be there. My mom did a lot of philanthropy and social work her entire life.
Yeah.
So I've seen that growing up. And I think, as we all know of parenting, seeing is much more than what they say, right? So,
Absolutely. When you have parents that are so full on into their careers, and a mom who probably was there but had a full time job as a gynac and also doing the social impact she did via that sector additionally, what kind of parent does that make you want to be? Does that make you feel like, no, but I want to be there more?
I think my mother, when we grew up, always had this feeling of guilt. because she always felt like, oh, all the other mothers were there to get you. You know, you came home, they were there for lunch, and I wasn't there. And
Yeah.
did you guys regret
And
that?
especially in those days.
Yeah. And did you regret that? And did you feel I wasn't there? And I kept telling her, and I still believe that honestly, we were okay because we were proud of what you were doing. She never told us, oh, I'm busy in meetings. She never said, oh, I can't be there for this. She was there for the things, important things. She was there for all the plays and the dances and all of that.
Yeah.
On a day to day basis, she wasn't at home when we came home. But I knew what she was doing was actually very, very important.
You knew she wasn't at a kitty
People.
party.
That too, but
Yeah.
also that she was genuinely making an impact in the world. So we were proud. We never resented her for it, right? And I always tell a lot of my friends, even though who are doing like admin jobs, and I'm like, translate that to your child of what that means for the world. If you keep saying I'm in a meeting, the child doesn't understand what that means. But you're doing what? How does that impact the world, right? How does it help people? I think if you share that with your children, the emotion shifts a little bit. But to answer your question, I mean, I think for me, I'm in a very privileged place than they were, right? I mean, I started building my business at 20. You know, by the time I've gotten to my 40s, it's also a business. I'm not a doctor, so I don't have to be physically there
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
I was able to get to a space where I was able to professionalize, and these were choices, and they took hard work, but it was still doable. As a doctor, it's very different, right? You can't outsource your surgery to somebody else. So I
Absolutely.
think from a privilege perspective, I feel like if I could balance it more, which is what I'm trying to do, I like to be at home when my son comes home for lunch. I like to be there in the morning, in the night, you know, very critical times. I spend a lot of time with my children, probably 5, 6, 7 hours a day, right? And I
Yeah.
enjoy it. But I'm also at a stage where I can do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, for them, it was just not possible. They didn't have the resources, they didn't have the help, they couldn't do outsource their jobs. So it is what it is.
Well, I know that you had your first child when COVID hit,
At 40,
and
yeah.
you were at 40, and you were managing um, testing, the diagnostic challenges, the shift in the world per se, managing the government, all of that as a new mother. So I understand that you weren't a doctor,
Yeah.
but I think you've shown real grit, and I think one day you should tell your kids what you went through, especially your son, that he was born at a
Yeah.
time where the world was on its head,
Yeah. It was.
and you were at the forefront in India,
Yeah.
which is it's a proud thing to tell your kids.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, it was those 3 months were challenging. I would say I was definitely pushed at the
yeah,
time. Because you know you're breastfeeding 10 hours a day, you're trying to do it in a way that you're not answering calls and doing emails at the same time. But at that time, it was unavoidable because I had people across the country messaging me at all times of the day and night, just saying, "Look, I really need help. I'm this one's friend in Hyderabad. I need help. I'm this one's friend in Kerala." And this is besides the structural work we were doing, right, which is just setting up labs, scaling things, finding a way to encourage your employees to work
yeah,
because they were scared as well.
yeah.
Just
Just
organizing
putting protocols in place, right?
everything. I mean, there was
Yeah,
technical, there was finance, there was people, there was a lot going on. At the same time, the government was going crazy every day changing rules in every city of the country. So it was full on.
yeah,
So I knew the privilege of just being able to feed my child with not being able to check mails and not being able to do messages was not going to happen. So you
yeah.
make those choices, right, at that point of time. But honestly, in retrospect, it made having my twins so easy because I was like, this is a breeze. I just
The
have,
world is okay.
the world is okay.
It's a normal day.
It's fine. I just
Yeah.
have to breastfeed. There's
Yeah.
nothing else to it. I can actually chill. And I actually started getting serious FOMO because between the feedings, I had 2 hours, 3 hours, and with twins, it's a little harder, right?
Yeah.
'Cause it's not like you're always feeding them
Yeah.
together. It's one after the other. So every 2 hours, you're on job. But you start feeling like, hey, there's not enough to do. And
Wow,
that's the
Ameera.
silver lining, right?
Tell you, women watching this will be feeling so inadequate right
Really,
now.
that's not the point.
Honestly, no, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No, I think everyone can adapt, take some of that attitude, and sort of apply it to their lives when they're feeling stressed, wired, and have lost perspective. I think this is great to actually hear and implement. Um, Also, the fact that you had a pretty frugal upbringing, There was deep value for money in your home. I think even when people were doing reasonably well. How did that help you, Ameera? And how do you sort of pass that on to your children? Because that's going to be a bit hard. You run
Yeah.
a company that is now valued at what? About 10,000 crores on the, and you're a reasonable shareholder. That's a tremendous amount of wealth. You've pretty much been in every article that talks about female success in India and unicorns and entrepreneurs, and all of it is true. So,
I mean, this is honestly the biggest, I would say, anxiety for me.
yeah.
The biggest favor my parents did to me, for me actually, was actually from my dad. My mom still grew up very aspirational in her life and wanting to, always look above in terms of nicer things, nicer home, nicer cars, etc., etc.
Yeah.
The trappings that come with success. My father always said two things to us. One thing is he insisted that we have no AC in the room.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be, we grew up very comfortably, but we had a fan. We walked to school. There was no driver to drop us. At the age of 9 or 10, I was walking alone to school. I took the public transport when I went to college. I took a train or I took a bus. So they kept things simple. It's not that we didn't have a car
Mm.
driver, but they didn't keep excess of things around, that it was always available for us at every point. That was
Mm.
number one. And my father always told me, he said, listen, please don't marry a rich man. And he very clearly, he said, please don't marry a rich man. It's actually opposite of what most people tell their daughters.
Yeah.
And he said, if you want to marry anybody, marry a self-made man.
Mm.
Please don't marry somebody who's inherited a lot of wealth,
Mm.
because sometimes if you've inherited too much, you either have something to prove, or you don't have the confidence that you were able to do the same thing, or whatever. There is something that sometimes comes
Mm.
out of it, right? So his point was always like, one, don't get so used to things that you can't do without them.
Mm.
And second, don't marry somebody who hasn't built anything on their own,
Mm.
right? These were his two messages to me. And I really struggle to say, how am I going to do this with my children? And not because I live or I desire a very fancy lifestyle, but unfortunately, the circles you move in, the people you're with, the environment you're in, does lead to more trappings of success than at least I grew up with, for sure. But I think the only consolation you give giving yourself is that children learn from ups and downs in life. They don't learn when everything is a one-way street.
Mm.
When everything is a one-way street, they see everything easy, and then that becomes their default reality. But I've seen friends of mine who've grown up very rich, but because they've seen down cycles in their families' lives, they've actually are extremely grounded and very, with having perspective. Now, I can't create that down cycle.
I mean, we don't really want to wish for that
You don't
now.
want to wish for that, and you can't create it. It's not, if it happens in life, it happens. But what you can do, I think, is, at least what we're trying to do, is try to keep a mix of experiences.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're going to go and stay in a luxury resort, can you also get camping? Right? If you're going to go and be in a car and driver all day, can you also take the public bus and the rickshaw sometimes, and a train?
No, and I'm
Right?
assuming that your children are going to be also at one of your labs at age 10, and also with your in your husband's company, whatever infrastructure he may have here. I know mostly it's in the north, but at one of your labs here.
Yeah.
Also sort of put those kind of values in, get them working, get them thinking, get them entrepreneurial
That's
early on.
that's right.
You can't really help the success that you've had, and you can't really apologize for it.
But you can.
But you can help them navigate through it with a
That's
certain degree of um, perspective, balance, and values to
that's
the
right.
best of your ability.
And when I talk about Metropolis to my older son, who's 5, my conversation is always about the millions of people we help, what we do for people, why I have to go in for meetings. Sometimes he's like, Mama, I want you to stay with me for this play date. I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to go because this is what I'm doing. I'm not like, oh, we have to get cash from people. And, often, because that's what we tell our kids, right? If I
Yeah.
don't go to work, I don't get cash.
Yeah.
And then how will I buy you toys, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So I think it's about also the tonality,
Mm.
what we communicate. Hopefully they get some values out of that.
Mm. Let's get down to business then. Tell me post-COVID, Ameera, in terms of, firstly, how many centers are you at now?
We have 220 labs, and we have 4,500 centers in
Yeah.
India and 5 countries in Africa.
And about 6,000 employees
About
now?
almost 6,500 employees. Yeah.
Wow. And now, of course, you've had some, you've made some acquisitions. So that's going to be adding to the fold, integrating into the fold.
That's right.
You're expanding in the north. Right now, your southwest thing is, foothold is pretty firm
We're
and
leaders in
strong.
South and West. We're
Yeah.
challengers in North and East. We have infrastructure everywhere, but
Yeah.
we're not the number one or the number two in those markets. And that's the aspiration, is to make sure that we become significant players in the North and
Yeah.
East.
Um, would you have an idea of the rough number of tests that you do a day?
I do, of course. We
Yeah.
do about 30,000 samples per day, 30 to 40,000 samples per day, which would be equivalent to about close to about 1.5 lakh of tests per day. It works as a hub and spoke.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you are a patient who's given us a sample in Akola in Maharashtra,
Mm.
probably the basic test will get done in Akola in a lab that we have there. From there, the test will then come straight to Bombay for the
Yeah.
specialized tests. But for example, let's say if it's in Punjab in Bhatinda, you'll do some basic tests there, then maybe it'll go to Chandigarh or some more complex tests, and then maybe or Delhi, and then it'll come to Bombay. So there's a whole hub and spoke model that works. So the logistics around it, because all of this has to be transported in the right temperature for the right sample. So you have to remember, many different tests require different temperatures.
Yeah.
So it's as much a logistics business as much as it is a services business, as much as it is a retail business, a wholesale business, a manufacturing business, and most importantly, healthcare, because
Yeah.
everything that's overarching it is life and death. So there's nothing that you can do where you can say, oh, okay, I'm 99% right. And therefore, they are bound to make 1,000 mistakes a year, right? It would be a reasonable thing to say.
Of
But
course.
that 1,000 mistakes a year for anybody is
Yeah.
1,000 lives, right? It could be us diagnosing cancer incorrectly for somebody that changes their life, or vice versa. So for us, the success measurement is not about your success rate, it's about your failure rate. And the microscopic view to say, how many did we make errors? If we made errors, how many did we make? And how do we ensure that comes to zero? That's the real KPI.
Especially given there's no liability really, right? So this is a
It's a self
driven thing.
that
And also, if you want to sustain in the market, you want to be a credible brand,
That's right.
obviously.
The market still today, unfortunately, in India doesn't have outcome based reporting, which means you can't go on anybody's website and find out how many errors they made. Or if a hospital did, 100 heart surgeries, how many were successful? Nobody knows today.
Yeah.
We've been actually trying to work with the government to say, please move on outcome based reporting, because this is helpful for patient awareness and empowerment, right? But for that, government also has to do it. So it's a tricky slope. But I think the US has already moved there. So today, honestly, if you ask me, is the market demanding it? Is the market forcing us? The answer is no, because nobody else is doing it. Everything we have done has been sort of self-created. So
No, and here actually people have to catch up with the concept of testing, right?
that's right. And
Which is now
yeah, but
sort of
also
coming into at least tier one cities well.
yeah, but
Uh,
that's more preventive.
yeah.
I mean, illness testing has been around.
Yeah.
But like in 2005, we were the first ones who said that, hey, okay, we're doing all the best we can, but let's get accredited. Let some third party come and tell us how we're doing. And we brought in CAP, which is called College of American Pathologists, to come in and review us and audit us and check us, right? So the concept of accreditation also started by international players. But finally, all of this comes down to your culture. It comes down to the leadership at the top, how much importance you put on quality. Are you non-negotiable about it? Are you saying that, oh, this year my profits are not so good, guys? Instead of doing 3 levels of check, can you do 2 levels of check? Right? Or nothing will get compromised. Right? Those kind of choices are where things go wrong, and it starts to become a slippery slope. So I think for that, my job at this point of time is to remain the soul of the organization. It's to make sure we have the right values. We're following the same values that we followed before. We can add to it. We can't delete. And that's my job.
So you have acute illness test.
Yeah.
That's what it's called, right? And then you have your wellness.
And you have chronic.
And you have
So a chronic disease is like a diabetes, which
Yeah.
you have lifelong. Cancer is also chronic
Yeah.
because it might stay in your body. Acute is when, for example, you have you had a bout of dengue.
Yeah.
Right? It was a one-time thing.
Yeah.
And it's going away.
Yeah.
So we operate in all three spaces.
And what would be the
The
Biggest
largest would
pie?
be probably acute.
Yeah.
Because in India, people don't always look at healthcare as a continuum. They look at it as an episode. And therefore, you fall sick, you go to the doctor, you get tested, and you're done. And then you don't follow it up unless you're diabetic or you have
Yeah.
chronic issue. So acute is the largest illness. Acute is the largest category in India. So we do most testing there. Chronic is number two. We do a lot of like hepatitis testing for people whole life, HIV, cancer, diabetes, heart, thyroid, all of that. And then obviously you have wellness, which is more around being preventive and sort of going once a year and checking yourself.
Yeah. What would you say is the top two dangers right now for people coming to test? Like, what are you seeing? Is it diabetes? Is it kidney disease? Is it liver? Is it cancer?
Actually, I would say more than that. It's
Yeah.
about um,
Heart?
it's actually more about a lack of interest in education. I'll give you simple things. You see people today at the end of a day, they'll have a late night, they'll party till 3. The next morning, they'll get up, they'll call somebody to put a IV drip,
Mm.
right? And say, oh, I'm going to get refreshed. Now, we live in India today. There's nothing wrong with the concept, but we live in a country today where there are no standards for any
Correct.
industry.
So, what the hell are you
Right?
actually
What
putting
are you
into
putting in your
yourself?
body?
Yeah.
Right? When you're constantly taking drugs, when
Yeah.
you're constantly taking whether allopathy, whether homeopathy, whether Ayurveda, whether anything else, are you taking the interest to actually check what you're putting in your body or your kid's body? Or are you just following a herd and saying, oh, my friend told me this is good, so I'll do it, right? So I find a lot of that. And in a country where we don't have standards yet, unfortunately,
Yeah.
we have to take that kind of empowerment in our own hands to take a decision, because you may be taking something for 20 years you think is really helping you, but hey, it's got lead poisoning, it's giving you lead poisoning because it's got metals in it.
Yeah.
So I think just that awareness of really going to good quality players, doing the right things at the right time,
Yeah.
getting yourself checked. I find a lot of this behavior of saying, oh, this company is giving me a promo scheme where I'm getting like 300 rupees off, so I'll do it with them like a test.
I mean, you're not buying an AC.
And you
Yeah.
don't even do that for like the other things in your life, right? Why would
Yeah.
you do it for your health, which is the most important thing?
What fraction now, percentage would be organized now?
Still only 15%
That's
of the
it.
industry. That's it. And the 15%, like you asked me, is
Yeah.
self-driven. Now, all organized is not all great, number one.
Yeah.
It's not that every organized player is following amazing standards, right? There'll be differences there too.
Yeah.
But organized will maybe be slightly better than some not so good organized. But there'll be unorganized guys who are also good, right? But I think it's going deeper. It's about saying one level deeper than organized versus unorganized. It's going to the brand. It's checking the accreditations. It's checking the word of mouth. It's finding out whether the doctors trust them. There are pieces, layers you need to do before you just sort of say, I'm going to do it because somebody gave me 300 rupees off.
Yeah, I hear you. But back to the point of, at least in urban India, what are you seeing as sort of the top three issues right now in the tests?
See, post-COVID, we're certainly seeing, a lot of people realize that post-COVID, there was a pressure on the respiratory illnesses. So people feel that somewhere their lungs are not as strong and therefore, but what we forget is that when our lungs are not as strong and we have to take in more and more oxygen, our heart comes under more pressure because it has to pump harder.
Yeah.
Right? It has to do more work to support your lungs. So, many parts of your body get impacted when you have a respiratory illness or you've, recovered from something. So your heart has been under pressure. So obviously we're seeing a fair number of people who are, thinking they're very fit. They are running on a treadmill for 40 minutes, keeping their pulse per minute at like 140, 160 and feeling I'm so healthy.
Yeah.
But if you go into science, what the best physicians will tell you, it's not healthy to keep your heart pumping at 140 and 150 for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not recommended, right? It's
Yeah.
okay to say, I'm going to do a sprint for 5 minutes. I'll take my heart rate up. Then you got to bring it back down.
If you're in a city like Bombay or Ahmedabad or Bangalore or Delhi or whatever, and there are 100 tests coming into a lab, okay, where will you see the maximum sort of problem areas? Would it be cholesterol? Would it be kidney, chronic kidney? Would it be what are you
The
seeing?
region, Devna. For
Yeah.
example, Tamil Nadu has the highest diabetes
Okay.
because they eat lots of white rice.
Yeah.
Right? That's finely fat. You eat it with bunch of stuff. It converts to sugar, lands up in diabetes. Punjab has lots of hepatitis. It also has a lot of thalassemia. It also has a lot of cancers. right? So every region of our country.
And what would you say, Mumbai?
I don't think Mumbai I've seen in any particular strong
Trend.
pattern. I mean,
Yeah.
Bombay, obviously, you have a lot of waterborne illnesses, right?
Yeah.
Our city goes to absolute crap when it comes to monsoons, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's sick, everybody has a stomach flu, everybody's got some poisoning. or
Dengue,
the other,
malaria,
right?
whatever.
So I think Bombay is at its worst in the monsoons.
Yeah.
And so I think you got to take care of your gut probably a little bit more in Bombay.
Post-COVID, there were a lot of influenza strains floating around, and there were a lot of tests that were sort of confirming that. Do you feel now that it's been 2, 3 years post that phase, do you feel, as per your testing, that that is settling down, or are you seeing more and more strains of influenza, sort of the intensity becoming worse, the numbers becoming larger? What do you
The
see?
numbers are clearly lower, not because it's gone away, but because our country moved to self-testing through
Hmm.
kits at home, which, if you ask me, was not the best
Yeah.
idea. For the simple reason because one, you lost track of any
Yeah.
idea of what's happening in the country in terms of the number of illnesses, diseases. You have seen variants come post that, but science is not even spending the time now. People in the world research, they're not doing the research to even build kits or reagents for the latest variant because the
Hmm.
latest variant is not known to be now deathly.
You're talking about the latest variant of COVID.
COVID,
Okay.
right? So during COVID, if you remember, because we didn't understand the disease, huge billions of dollars went into research and development to not only identify the virus, the mutation, to then figure out research and development to build the chemicals to do the testing, then the vaccination, etc.
Yeah.
Right? Now, after that deathly phase has passed,
Yeah.
now the same money is not going in.
Yeah.
So even if we are having new variants, we don't have the ability to test them
Hmm.
globally, right? We don't have the ability to vaccinate. And now, when countries are moving to self testing, you have no tracking also.
Mhm.
So, honestly, the plot, that ship has sailed, right? Now, whatever happens is going to come as a shock to us
Yeah.
if anything happens.
Wow.
I
Okay.
hope it doesn't. And
Yeah.
we have not seen any variants becoming very deathly or strong.
Yeah.
So, it's nothing to be
But
scared
you're
of.
still seeing a lot of COVID.
I mean, you're seeing influenza,
Whoever.
flu.
Yeah.
Now, whether it is COVID, whether it is swine flu, depends on the chemicals to test it.
Correct.
If people are testing at home with kits which were for the earlier variant, it'll be negative.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't know is the reality.
Wow. Okay. Also, in terms of like, there are articles every day about chronic kidney disease and things like that, fatty liver. Are you seeing a lot of that in your tests as
Yeah,
well?
we're seeing a fair amount of fatty liver. I mean, fatty liver is usually diagnosed with a sonography,
Yeah.
but then you do come in for sort of liver profile
Yeah.
and many other
Yeah.
complications. But absolutely, I mean, we also always think the liver only dies because of
Alcohol.
cirrhosis and
Yeah.
alcohol, and you've realized that actually the liver can die for many other reasons, and
Yeah.
it's very supportive to the gut
Yeah.
and the stomach. And if you do the wrong things, you're going to kill the liver through other ways as well.
Yeah.
So you're definitely seeing through more awareness, people are doing more checks, but it is still superficial.
Yeah.
People are not following up on what
Yeah.
tests they're doing. I often see people get the annual checkup done. They feel, aha, tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
But then they actually don't go to a doctor and check, okay, the ones which are abnormal, what do I do?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's
so true.
the important part of it, right?
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what your next steps are.
Absolutely right. What about breast cancer and things like that? Do you find more women coming in now and being more aware and educated about early detection?
You are finding definitely more awareness than the past. I think that's true for
Of
across
course.
healthcare.
Yeah.
Are we finding women who are actively checking themselves to check for lumps at home? No.
Yeah.
Usually, a woman will only pick it up when the symptoms start to show quite significantly.
Yeah.
So we still haven't gotten to the space of self-check, self-examination.
Yeah.
Not gotten there yet. People are too busy on Insta.
Ameera, trust you to throw that one in. Okay. Also, the average spend per person, okay, let's say on testing, whether it's let's say a Bombay versus a like a Baroda versus a Delhi versus a Bangalore. How do you see it?
There's different levels of awareness.
Yeah.
So you're definitely seeing the south and west of India being far more aware,
Yeah.
empowered.
Yeah.
There's a higher, GDP per capita. There's more willingness to spend on healthcare
Mm.
and generally more awareness. In North, you find that much lesser. There's still a sense of hard testing karna hai, but I want to go with the brand that advertises on hoardings. I want to go with the one that gives me the cheapest rate, etc., etc. So you see that difference between the markets. Within that, across the country, you see tier one cities with the highest awareness.
Yeah.
You've not seen preventive healthcare go down to tier two, tier three cities at all.
Mm.
So while Bombay, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, etc., will do regular checks, percentage of people will do regular checks.
Yeah.
In smaller markets, you're not seeing that.
Mm. So that's where the opportunity lies.
At this point of time, it'll grow. I mean, it'll percolate down.
Yeah.
But everything, it takes time, right? And somebody has to grow the market and somebody has to create the awareness. So I think many of us who are leaders are in the process of doing that, but that doesn't necessarily give you the results overnight. And again, while people say, yeah, we are leaders in West and South, it doesn't mean that we dominate every market.
Yeah.
So there are many markets in South and West which we don't dominate and we are not the leaders in. And we have an aspiration and an opportunity to take that kind of testing to those markets and provide it to patients.
Yeah.
So there's still enough opportunity in West and South. In fact, that's the fastest growing area for
Yeah.
us. There's opportunity in the North and East to bring that level of world-class diagnosis to patients, to bring the kind of test menu we have to patients. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well. I mean, honestly, India's for the next 20 years continues to remain a long runway for growth. So I don't worry about running out of opportunity. Either there's a geographical lever, there's also a product lever. I mean,
Yeah.
every year we are creating 100 new tests and adding to the menu because we're doing research and development constantly to say, look, what is needed for people? How do you diagnose certain illnesses better? We've launched this whole platform for genomics. That's going to be the next wave in healthcare,
Yeah.
where for any disease, today you have a standardized tablet, standardized food, standardized protocols for everybody. It has no connection to what's actually happening in your body and your gene sequence. But if you know your genomic sequence, you can tailor make the food, the drugs, the protocols, the treatment for what suits you. So the future of testing is going to be a lot around genomics.
So explain what your labs will be doing.
Our labs have the ability to do case studies. For example, women used to have miscarriages.
Yeah.
We didn't know why.
Yeah.
It just happened. Doctor said, we don't know, deal with it, try again. Now, if there is a specific mutation you're looking for, you can find out what genetic mutation is potentially causing the miscarriage. If you know what genetic mutation is causing it, you have the ability to do something about it. So therefore, you can then help the woman understand that and potentially avoid a miscarriage in the future.
Right.
Let's take cancer.
Yeah.
Somebody is suffering from cancer, needs to know what therapy and drugs is going to work for them. Genomics can tell you exactly what's happening in the body. Not only can it identify again the gene mutation that is potentially causing the cancer, because some cancers are genetic, not all. But then you can take that mutation and look at the other family members and say, hey, does anyone else in the family have this mutation? Because then they're at risk of the same cancer.
And then what do you do about that?
You can proactively start to monitor. For example, rather than finding it in stage 3 and then not having any choice, you can find it in stage 1 and you are able to actually manage it and therefore be okay. Right. So
Are you in touch with people in the Western world, like in America, for example, where they have advanced a little more in this area? Or is everyone right now very nascent?
see, everybody's no, we're actually reasonably advanced in India as well as in the US. The difference is in the US because insurance pays for diagnostics.
Yeah.
It is far more prevalent and frequently used because people don't have to pay out of pocket. So today, for example, it is not uncommon to prescribe very specialized tests on an ongoing basis by doctors for patients when they need it.
Because it's covered by
Paid
insurance.
for it,
Yeah.
right? But in India,
But
because
then that would mean that
paying,
on average, abroad, they would do a lot more tests
they do
per.
12 tests per sample, while in India we do 3. Right? So this whole concept of overdiagnosis is nonsense in India. I mean, it may happen in anecdotal cases where somebody's doing something wrong, but generally, by and large, it's not that people are getting overdiagnosed because too many tests are being done. It's probably the wrong test at the wrong time. That's possible. But it's not frequently overdiagnosis.
Do you find that doctors are getting quite trigger happy about, oh, test for this, test for that?
No, I really don't. I mean, I see the medical fraternity very closely. And honestly, there's a lot of mistrust for doctors with anecdotal reasons to do so. There's always good apples and bad apples.
Yeah.
But I can tell you largely, we have really good apples in India, and we have doctors who genuinely care. And whether they always follow, they will try to do the best for their patient. You may not agree with some things they do or some things they don't do. Somebody may feel, oh, they did too many tests. But the same patient will go to the doctor and say, see, this doctor missed out this illness in me because he didn't do enough tests. So people will talk through both sides of their mouth, right? But generally, I'll tell you, I find, yes, the practices are not always great in healthcare, and that's because of a lack of standards. You'll have that mixed
Lack of
apples. Lack
regulation.
of regulation. So
Yeah.
you'll have the bad apples who are doing wrong things, but the good apples are really good.
Till insurance covers diagnostic testing, it's not going to pick up in the way that it has in the Western
Because
world.
there's a lack of affordability. Simple. If you talk to any of our staff at home,
Yeah, of course.
when they fall sick, are they going and testing like we are? Answer is no. They're usually popping pills and dealing with the pain.
And some neighborhood chap who treats all the stuff.
Oh, I know, and a neighborhood chap will say injection milega.
Yeah.
And that injection is usually vitamin C, and it's gone, it's done.
So at a policy level, there needs to be huge changes in
That's
this area. In terms of testing trends post-COVID, do you think there have been major changes? Or do you think that now that the as you said, that life and death COVID situation has passed, has testing actually decreased in some ways?
No. I don't think it's decreased. I think the preventive care has increased. The wellness category has expanded.
Yeah. Which is more profitable for you guys as well, right?
Really, it's a similar sense, a similar margin profile, because you'll end up discounting when you put tests together in a bundle, you'll end up discounting it for the consumer.
Yeah.
And then obviously you get some benefits of economies of scale. So overall, the margin profiles are actually similar. They're not very high or very low comparatively. But the preventive category has expanded. Obviously, then everything else depends on seasonality and weather. Like we said, in monsoons, you'll end up seeing more illnesses, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In Diwali in Q3, for example, when you have festivals, everybody's traveling. Doctors are traveling. People are traveling. So you see actually testing fall significantly because people are more in a festive mood. So you see those kind of seasonal changes and trends, but largely I don't think you've seen testing falling. Acute has remained the same because it was as and when needed. Chronic was as and when needed. It's only the wellness category that's expanded.
Okay. What about the challenges apart from sort of lack of awareness, education, lack of insurance, affordability, etc.? What about real estate?
I don't think it's a big challenge, honestly. I mean, look, today pathology chains, you have labs and then you obviously have collection centers all across. So the hard part is finding the small square feet of collection centers that you need. You don't always get the sort of 200, 300, 400 square feet you need. You're fighting with ATMs and banks, for it. But I don't see it as a big issue, actually.
So, what is your biggest challenge?
People.
Yeah.
Actually, the biggest challenge is in healthcare, you will find people who are technical on the ground. You will find the phlebotomists, you will find the pathologists. They're not always perfectly trained. They're not always ready when they come out of college to put them on the job. We actually have to train them for 6 months before you can actually use them. But the biggest challenge in our industry is a lack of talent on the non-medical side. So actually, if you see, today there are only two or three companies in our industry that actually have brought in professional talent from outside and who are good. And you can actually this, but usually industries grow when you have a large circulation of talent. Whether it was the telecom companies that came in and created large pools of talent, whether it was pharma who came in internationally, FMCG who came into India and created pools of talent. And then they went to Indian companies like Marico and others, and they all built. That's not happened in healthcare. We've had to make our own talent in India, and that talent has not existed. So we are getting talent from other industries and training them in domain. Now that can only work when you as a promoter know the domain.
Yeah.
So today it's okay for 3-4 companies who are in the domain for long term. But anybody new who wants to get into pathology, how will they train the people? So what lands up happening is you have a lot of average schools. Right? You have an average talent pool of people who are using half knowledge to build an industry. And that actually spoils the industry because then they don't follow good quality protocols.
Because, errors are a very real thing.
Absolutely.
In testing.
Absolutely.
I mean, in my family itself, we've seen so many errors. It's not about Metropolis or NM other path labs or SRL or whatever it may be. I'm not giving names, But there are errors. And
But
it's not rare.
But see, errors are
Yeah.
also perception. And I'll tell you this, I'll say why. For example, let's say we get, 1,000 feedbacks a year. I can tell you when we actually go through all those 1,000, you will actually find the errors are very few.
Okay.
Most of them are perception. I'll tell you why. What happens is, because this comes back to a lack of awareness. A patient goes to one lab, gets a certain result, goes to another lab,
Yeah.
gets a different result.
Yeah.
They believe one is an error, one is real.
Hmm.
Often people don't realize that your body is also changing. Your blood is changing. What you have eaten is changing your blood, right? You went drinking the last night, it changed your liver profile the next morning. So there are many circumstances around which in 2 days your results would be different
Hmm.
in the same person, right? For certain tests. For example, there are cases where we have given a result which is, let's say, abnormal. Somebody got scared, like a cancer test which has come abnormal. Now that person has got scared. Now it's clearly written in the report that this can come abnormal in many other cases of other diseases.
Hmm.
This is not a screening tool. It's not a diagnosis tool, right? You can't use this as a confirmatory diagnosis, but the person will say it's wrong. So it is not the labs that are always making errors, those happen. But it's a lot of, again, lack of awareness on how to interpret the report in the correct way that also contributes to that perception that there are a lot of errors.
Okay.
Right? Like, let's take COVID. During COVID, what people didn't know. For example, you did a self test at home that had a 50% accuracy. 50%. It could be positive, it could be negative, you don't know. It's 50-50, right? You come to a good lab to do a PCR, it's a 75% accuracy at best. Now, in that 70%, it's not all for all labs. It depends on your protocols. If you follow the best quality protocols, you'll have 75%. If you actually take some shortcuts, maybe you'll be at 55%. Right? Now, even if you come to Metropolis and you come and get the best quality result, it's 75% accurate for a COVID PCR because the science is limited. The test was developed in 4 months because of an urgency. Nobody was able to get it to 99%. So, what are you going to do?
Are cancer markers effective? I mean, do you really need to do cancer markers?
Honestly, as a screening tool, no.
Yeah.
I think the right way to diagnose is actually to go for a sonography,
Yeah.
to go for a mammography. It's better to do some radiology investigations early on, to
Yeah.
do self-examinations for a breast cancer, etc. You do a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
These are the better ways to find out if you have potentially got a polyp or a tumor or something that is looking cancerous, right? Then you go and do a biopsy where you come back to a lab and you do a biopsy of that polyp to find out, hey, is it malignant? Is it not malignant? And after that, there are lots of blood tests which help you monitor the level of cancer, which help you diagnose it, determine it, genomics. There are lots of things which are helpful.
What is the most common cancer today in India?
So colon is quite common. Again, it depends on the region. Colon is quite common. You have mouth cancer, which
Yeah.
is very common because of all the what do you call it?
Tobacco
And the mouth
yeah.
things that they eat.
Yeah.
What they call
Tambaku.
tambaku and all
Yeah.
of that, right? That they eat. So mouth cancer is a big one.
So is it more in men? Is
It is
cancer
prevalent.
more prevalent in men
It
than
is.
women?
It is.
But quite a bit more, or is it?
I don't have the latest
Yeah.
statistics on
Yeah.
men versus women, so
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
quote something that's incorrect. But from my understanding, yes, it's higher in men.
Okay. Because of lifestyle and things like heart, liver, also a male disease.
Yeah, largely. I mean, women also do, but
Of
much more
course.
men. Again, look at visceral fat.
Yeah.
It's a big one that contributes to it. We have lots of
The
men with lots of
latest thing-
visceral fat.
The latest report on the samosa and the jalebi. Damn, you know how many samosas and jalebis I've eaten in my life?
We all have.
You know, I'm just
But
wondering, like, I wish I could backtrack and sort of, you know,
it's moderation, yeah.
yeah.
Listen, you have never eaten 20 samosas and 20 jalebis in a day.
No.
Okay, and neither have you eaten it every day. You
Yeah.
want to eat even once in 2 weeks, once in 3 weeks, you have one samosa, nobody's going to do
What's
anything.
wrong with the samosa?
There's no problem.
Yeah.
But if you're going to eat, aloo paratha for breakfast and samosa for lunch and, butter chicken for dinner, I mean, you're going to have a problem.
Of course. Okay. So, as an industry, Ameera, do you think that there's going to be a huge sort of growth in the genomic testing for everyone
Yeah.
involved? And that's going to kind of change the way people even medicate themselves, the way they eat, the nourishment, all of that.
Healthcare
It's going to take
will
a few
become-
years.
Healthcare will become far more personalized in the future.
And AI, right? How is AI going to come into this? Because there's so much that is standardized in diagnostics, even for certain like CBC testing and like,
Not standardized.
yeah,
For example, you go to two good labs in India
Yeah.
for CBC, the reference ranges are different.
yeah,
There is no
they are different.
standardization because it is linked to the machine you use,
Yeah,
the reagents you use, and the protocols you follow. For example, at Metropolis, we have Indianized the reference range, right? Because we are all the other so-called standardized ones you get on machines are all based on an Anglo-Saxon population. It's not relevant for us. In India, most women are not going to have a 13 hemoglobin to be considered normal, right? The cutoff in India should be closer to 11 or 11.5, right? Because our diet is different, right? So you can't use Anglo-Saxon reference ranges for a different population. So what we've done through our history and our data is we've created Indian reference ranges that are relevant for our population because we have millions of data. Now, other labs may not have this data, so they'll follow Anglo-Saxon ones. So your answers will be different, which is why I always tell people, I said, you pick a lab and please stick with them.
yeah,
Because your results otherwise will be like all over the place.
yeah. Ameera, you've had a couple of mentors who you've consulted when you've had difficult decisions to make. For example, taking on debt. Because I don't think you've grown up with parents who ever sort of. We've all had Gujarati parents who
Yeah.
don't believe in debt.
80%
You know?
savings, 20% kharcha, nothing
Correct.
else.
Like my father still doesn't take on debt for his
Right.
business, right? How do you develop this debt appetite?
There's no debt appetite, number one.
Yeah.
I was in a very challenging situation.
Yeah.
And I had to make a choice between punting myself behind myself and taking a big decision to back myself.
This is when you were buying out your investor.
That's right. I
Yeah.
was not actually buying him out. I was buying out Warburg Pincus
Yeah.
because they were stuck because of this third investor.
Yeah.
But I was giving them an exit because they came in because of me and I had a great relationship with them. And I finally took on debt about 600 crores to buy their stake out, gave them an excellent return. And then I had debt at 20% interest that I had to pay off over the next many, many, many years, before I was debt free. It took me about 5 years of that journey. Oh, sorry, 6 years to from the debt to getting exiting it. And there was a lot of luck involved in it as well, but there was a lot of planning involved in it
Yeah,
as well.
of course.
And I grew up in the same atmosphere of saying no debt, no karza. I mean, my parents would not let me take karza at even the sweet shop. Like if I ever went and took a polo and I said, bhaisa paisa nahi hai, he would give it to me. When my mom found out that I was, taking polo and little candies from the shop guy at karza, she was not happy. And she made me immediately go and pay it back, right?
Yeah.
So that's the environment you've grown up in. But I was in a situation where I've not grown up in a rich business family, right? We don't have eons and tons of money where I could dip in and say, oh, I'm going to buy the stake. Our entire wealth is in Metropolis. And that time Metropolis was much smaller and everything was in paper money, in stock. So there was no liquidity. So I had only two choices: continue to live in the bad situation I was in, which meant mental damage to me. And it also meant damage to the business. I could see Metropolis was getting suffocated. And I was not willing for that to happen to my baby. So I said, look, I've got to break out of these shackles. And the only way to do it at the time was to take debt and to get out of them, which meant it was a huge risk on myself on whether I have the capability to lead this company through the challenges, pay the 20% debt, still to make money for everybody involved and come out of it without having bringing my parents on board, right? So I did 2, 3 things. Number one, deep planning, right? I mapped out literally 8, 9 situations, scenarios, what can happen in each one of them, will I survive all of them, and understood what I was getting into. Second, sought help from people and advice and wisdom from people who had had more experience than I did. And that's where I talked to Deepak Parekh. Harsh helped me. Zia helped me. Uday Kotak helped me. And these were not people who had any allegiance to me. They didn't know me from Adam. They were not my family friends. I found ways to access them. I built a relationship. And then when I needed help, I went to them and I said, I need help. And I opened my arms and I said, I need your advice, right? Did I follow everybody's advice? No, right? I accumulated it and I made my own decision, right? I picked up the piece of advice that were helpful. Like Deepak told me something very important. And he said, Ameera, you're about to jump from a skyscraper building. What you're about to do is scary, right? Create a life jacket. I said, what do you mean? He said, please take out X amount of money from the business through dividends or whatever it is, and put it into your bank account and take care of your family so that if everything collapses, you can live on this money for the rest of your life, right? So I took out 20 crores, right? And I put it aside in, checking accounts and FFDs and things like that. And I said, okay, my parents are safe. And I said, now I'm punting. If everything goes, it goes. The huge help I got was from my parents, right? I mean, I told them, look, I'm punting everything, right? And they never asked me, what happens if this fails? What will happen to us? How can you do this? Nothing. They were there, rock solid behind me. I didn't get advice in the way of what I should do. I had to figure that out on my own. But
You got support.
I got support.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't get questions. I didn't get doubt. I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
Right? So, biggest game changer.
Going public, that changes life a lot.
Yeah.
You're higher profile, you're more accountable.
More noise, more opinions.
Yeah. In retrospect, I mean, honestly, money wants to make more money. I interviewed somebody who said, once you're done fundraising, that's not like, it's not a picnic.
Totally.
It's like,
It's the start of the journey.
He's like, people who give you money wants more money.
Yeah, you have to give them
He's like,
return.
you have to really think about
Absolutely
this journey that you undertake when you're either fundraising or going public.
I would not have gone public in 2019 if I didn't need to.
Yeah.
I had debt which I had to pay off, right? And the only way to do that was to sell my equity.
Yeah.
Right? So I had no choice. I could have sold it in the private market. That was an option. But the difference between the valuation in the private market and the public market was significant. And at that point of time, I would have had to exit far more equity to do it in the private market. It just didn't make any rational sense.
Lastly, Ameera, when you were going to, because you started in your 20s, this company, and you single-minded, single focus, obsessed. You've said that before, obsessive 16-hour days, eat, breathe, live, Metropolis. You became a mother at age 40. Did your senior management or anyone then fear that you might become soft? Did you fear you might become soft?
I've always been soft.
Yeah.
People may have a perception that I'm,
a shark,
or super hardcore. And of course, there are times I am, and as
where you need to be.
Where you need to be.
Yeah.
But
and when men are sharks, they're not called sharks. It's just what they do.
Right. But I'm saying equally, I have the ability to be very soft, to be very nurturing, to be kind, to be empathetic. And my team has seen that. So honestly, I don't think any of them had that worry at all. If anything, when they are in their biggest problems in Metropolis, whether personal or professional, a lot of them reach out to me, right? Because they feel they'll get that nurturing and that support, and they can be vulnerable because I've been vulnerable with them. Yeah. Right. So actually, no, that was not a worry. People were very kind and said, look, she's just had a baby. Let's not trouble her. That's what they wanted to do for me because they had seen me for 20 years before that. Just, be there every single moment. But that was not the time for me to take a step back. It was the time for me to lead from the front because everybody had things in their life. Some people had sick parents, people had dying parents, but everybody was at work. So I had no excuse to say, hey, I'm going to take a step back because I had a newborn child. So even though I wasn't there physically every day in the lab, while most of my team was, I was very much with them every step of the way. I was available, 24 hours a day. I was there for making every single decision, and I would not change that for the world.
And now
now it's different. It's different because I've chosen to professionalize. And when you choose to professionalize, your role changes, right? I've moved from being the CEO and the MD to the executive chairperson of the company. There's a change in role. Yeah. My role is now more of governance, of mentorship, of guidance, of strategy. Oh, yes, dealing with people, but it's not solving the day-to-day anymore. And I have to create that space for my team to now do it their way. So I intentionally don't go to the office every day. I work partly from home. I go to the office 2-3 times a week. Because when I'm in the office, the natural thing I'll do is what happened on this, what happened on this, what happened on this. And that doesn't give space. So I think it's a lot about, in my mind, entrepreneurship is a lot about being self-aware at different phases and and allowing yourself to not be your biggest obstacle in the way, right? And being aware to say, look, I had my time to be the CEO of the business, to make decisions, to do certain things. It's now my time to play a different role. And that space will help me do my role better.
Yeah. How do you de-stress?
Lots of ways. I play chess. It's my biggest de-stress. During the day, often you'll find me playing 10-minute games on phone. I play games with my friends like you at night, like Catan and other things,
Where you're a shark.
where I'm a shark. I spend time with my kids, which is sometimes de-stressing and sometimes very stressful.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, I mean, you have three
Sport,
children under the age of 5.
sports, love, all kinds of racket games.
Yeah.
So any of that. Time away with my husband. We really enjoy each other's company. So whether it's a coffee, whether it's a dinner, just sitting and chatting, he's been probably the most influential factor in my life in the last 15 years.
Mm,
You asked about debt. What makes you, comfortable with debt? You can blame it on him. Because he believed in me at a time when I didn't believe in myself.
mm.
And he showed me my capabilities when I didn't see them. So he's always pushed me to be more and do the things which are inherently more in me rather than be the person who says do less. So that's been a
Choice
really
of partner
wonderful
is
support.
just so critical
It
in
is
life.
really critical.
Are you an inclusive person in terms of, I know you're a very inclusive human being in general and empathetic and generous, but like you've built this company, sweat, blood, tears. You've sacrificed a lot. You've compromised a lot, even on personal relationships, I think, in your 20s and 30s. You have a sister who's a doctor. You have parents who are growing older. Are you generous with them when it comes to shareholding and stocks and, that kind of thing? Do you think that that's.
I think so. I mean, look, I think, my father has always had the attitude of everything in the family being ours
Yeah.
and not being individualistic.
Yeah.
So I don't think me or my sister really fight or worry about, hey, you have 1% more and I have 1% less. Honestly, there's none of that. Today, I manage the finances for all of us in the family,
Mm,
like it's mine.
mm,
And I feel like it's mine. It's ours, and it doesn't feel any different to me. There is a balance between uh, individuality and a family style. And I find like in some families, it's too much of everything is ours, nothing is anybody's. And that doesn't always give the feeling of, hey, why should I work harder? If every child is going to get everything equally, then everybody could be sitting in Hawaii and drinking mojitos, right?
yeah.
Then why will anybody work hard? I feel like there is a balance between rewarding individuality and the hard work and your what you bring to the table, but not making the center of the family around money
Mm,
and allowing it to be a little bit more free flowing and a little bit more transferable between all of us. I mean, Hemant and I are like that as well. There's no sense of mine and yours, whether it's surgery for his parent or my parent, it doesn't matter whose bank account it comes from. That's not the thought at all in, I would say, in the whole family.
lovely.
Yeah.
Give me one adjective that you would use for yourself, Ameera.
Authentic.
Indeed.
I am who I am, and some people may like it, some may not, but you won't get you won't get fakeness.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So nice to chat with you.
It was lovely.